Paralympic archer Tracy Otto survived a brutal domestic violence attack, losing her left eye and paralyzed from the chest down. But her spirit, unstoppable. Her powerful story on Bloom Health Club.
From the Stream Center, welcome to Bloom Health Club, sponsored by Monticciolo Family and Sedation Dentistry.
Health Club is one of inspiration. I am joined by 2024 Paralympian Archer and domestic abuse survivor Tracy Otto, and a true supporter of Tracy's three-time gold Olympic medalist, Brooke Bennett. Ladies, thank you all for being here.
Hi, thank you for having us. This is so cool.
And again, Brooke, thank you so much for making this introduction. It means so much to us to share your inspirational story that started off so very dark, but ends up in such a beautiful place. So Tracy, what happened?
Well, long story short, October 24th of 2019, my ex-boyfriend broke into my house and attempted to take my and my current boyfriend's life. And in the result, I ended up paralyzed from the chest down and half blind, and we both suffered other extensive injuries. But now our lives are completely changed in the fact that we're competing in the Paralympics and we have a baby together and taking over the world.
That's incredible. And to know Tracy is, when you get around her, you can feel her incredible spirit. And she came here to the Tampa Bay area to attend University of Tampa. She was going into pre-med, aspiring fitness model, and then everything turned on a dime. But somewhere along the way, you decided to pick up a bow and arrow, like get into archery. How did that come about?
I get asked that a lot, actually. And the funny thing is, it was a whim and it was a Google search. I had all of this newfound time on my hands, being newly paralyzed and disabled. And the level of disability that I have, life isn't as simple as, oh, go get a job. You know, I needed to find something to fill my time and to give me passion and purpose in life again. So I Googled adaptive sports programs near me, and I found that they had an archery program. I didn't know what it was going to look like or how we were going to make it happen, but I turned to Ricky and I go, hey, we're going to shoot archery. And he goes, girl, your hands don't work. And I'm like, we're going to figure it out. So we did.
And Brooke, you heard about this story. Yes. I mean, you heard about this last year when you were in Paris, and there was a huge reunion of all these incredible Olympic athletes. And literally, Tracy's first coach taught her how to pull the bow with her mouth, like using a mouth tab. And the minute, that arrow flew, she said it freed her soul. And when you hear stories like this, inspirational stories, man, it ties right together with people that go for the gold.
It does. And I saw the story on Tracy, so it was a little bit over a year ago as she was getting ready to compete, and we were watching so much of the Olympics. And of course, for me, every 4 years, it's my favorite time of the year. And I saw the story with Tracy, and as I was listening to the story, and then to come to find out she was from the Tampa Bay area, so I said, I have to reach out to her. I was working on putting together a welcome home Olympic party for all of our local Olympians with CFY, and I wanted Tracy to be a part of it. And since then, it's really been a growing friendship. And kind of a sisterhood of
Auntie
Olympians. Auntie Brooke to Riley. We're already planning on when swim lessons are going to happen. Yes. But it just, I think once I go through my career and I had the amazing accomplishments, and I say Tampa Bay is such a hotbed for great athletes and Olympians, and then Tracy's story and getting to know her more, I want to kind of guide her as best as I can to tell her story. Because there's two stories to be told. One, becoming a Paralympian and being a part of that family. But then two, her not being afraid to talk about what happened and to be the advocate of domestic violence to help women either avoid what happened to Tracy or help them cope with something that happened to them. And I'm very lucky that Tracy is sitting next to us and that he was not successful on ending her life or Ricky's life, because like she said, she always looks at everything as the glass half full, and that's such a strong message to anybody out there.
Yeah, and Tracy's attacker, who again was her ex-boyfriend, came at her with a pellet gun, shooting at close range, and a knife, which left her paralyzed from the chest down, if I'm remembering correctly. And when that all happened, Tracy, that must have just been the darkest days of your life, because everything turned on a dime. But the beautiful silver lining in all of this is that Ricky, your fiance now, never left your side throughout all of this.
Right. He, from the get-go, said, this is what it is, and we're going to figure out, and everything's going to be okay. It came down to, I remember in January of 2020, my family abandoned me at a nursing home in Chicago. And after that event, Ricky literally looked me in the face. He says, "Girl, I got you. We're going to be fine. We're going to rebuild. We're going to make the best life possible." And here we are.
And you have a baby girl who turned 8 months today, Riley. How has that changed your life?
Wow. Motherhood, being a disabled mother, has been a lot. It's been a whirlwind with lots of emotions and lots of chaos, as anybody can imagine. But, there is the fact that it's another challenge, but it's the best, most amazing thing I love to do. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done, aside from recovering from a spinal cord injury.
It's hard anyways, being a mom,
yeah.
right, Gayle?
Yeah,
so I'm like,
so hard.
Sometimes, Tracy will reach out, or I'll see that she's posted something, or ask her how she's doing. And I said, "Sweetheart, I know you think it's challenging because of your situation, but we've all felt it too." Yeah. So you're so I think in the aspect, I try to kind of give her a laugh to say it's hard no matter what. I understand that your challenges are much harder, but
you bring me back down to earth.
Motherhood is like challenging on all levels.
And no matter how big, because you and I were talking about this earlier in studio, Tracy. I mean, your baby is always your baby. My littlest is 18, and you're always facing the challenges of motherhood.
Yes.
I want to bring in, I didn't bring in Nacha Castillo, who is our lead producer and switching the show today. She might be jumping in from time to time. She's waved. There she is. Hey, Nacha. Whenever you want to join the conversation, feel free. I know you're behind the scenes making the magic happen, and we appreciate you so much. Brooke, I want to kind of circle back to something that you were talking to the both of us about. When Tracy first told everybody, "I'm going for the gold. I'm going to go compete," she said people audibly laughed out loud at that. But her grit and determination, took her to places that no one ever imagined. And I just want to go back to that kind of quality and character and how it does create champions in life.
It does. And I'm sure we all have experiences like that, whether, Gayle, through your career and things that you accomplished. I think we have those challenges. We have those challenges as women. We have those challenges as athletes. And I've always, and I think Tracy, as I've gotten to know her, turns it around when somebody laughs in your face and says, "Yeah, right." You're like, "Oh, you just gave me the extra motivation to prove you wrong." And a lot of my career was the same. I mean, I was after watching the 88 Olympics in Seoul, I actually forgot this, but somebody reminded me years later, sent me a message on Facebook, a friend of mine that was in my third grade class, and said, "Do you remember standing up on the first day of class when you go around and you introduce yourself?" And I said, "Hi, my name's Brooke Bennett, and I'm going to be an Olympic champion."
Yes, ma'am.
Like, what did I know at 8 years old? I'm like, did I really say that? And I'm like, I probably did. And I was very kind of outspoken in saying that I was going to be an Olympian at a very young age, not knowing yet what it was going to take. And then through my career, a lot of times it was, she's too small, she's not strong enough, her stroke is a little bit different, but it was all things that worked for me. And my coach and I used to always say it was my work ethic that put me on top. And that when I would go and get on the block, or probably how Tracy feels when she goes and she pulls the bow and she releases, that you have dedicated your heart and soul to this. And I always had the confidence of saying, whether it was true or not, in my brain, it was absolutely true. I trained harder than the other competitors, and I wanted it just a little bit more. And I had to tell myself that.
I love that. And Tracy, at which point when you were training, like you this all starts with a Google search. Then the next thing you know, you're working with a coach who's teaching you actually how to pull it with, because you didn't have the strength to pull with your arms or the ability to do so, correct?
Right. So my paralysis goes all the way across my chest and includes my hands. So my hand, like if you were to shake my hand, I can't even, for example, click a mouse.
Okay.
So we started with a mouth tab, and it was made out of leather, and then there's one that was made out of dog leash. And the only way that I was able to pull back that bow was with that tab using my teeth. And the other hand, I had like a ace bandage or something wrapped around it to help me not be able to drop it. And from there, it just started adapting and evolving into other ways to make it happen.
And you said, I heard you on the national level, because your story has gotten a lot of coverage, that it freed your soul. What do you mean by that?
It provides almost a sense of relief. Archery is a martial art, and it's very focused on breath work, mindfulness, and focus, which is something that's a struggle for me anyway, because I struggle with ADHD like a lot of people. But it provides me that space of calm, collection, and quiet, and relief from my disability. It gives me a purpose. It gives me a drive and a sense of I can do this regardless of the circumstances I've found myself in or how I'm feeling that day. I can do this by myself. I mean, in a sense, but like I'm the one shooting that bow. I'm the one aiming it and sending that arrow. So it's independence, it's freedom, it's hope, it's light, and it's just an avenue for me to release and live my life in a whole different way.
Did you find that in your incredible years of swimming and bringing home the gold for the USA? Brooke, did you find the same in your sport, that it's like a sense of freedom?
I still do today. I mean, it is when the world and life gets crazy and I feel like I've got no answer and no solution. I know that if I can just find my way to it, back then it was the pool. Now I'm certainly like an open water athlete. If I can find myself to the open water, it is just like where everything is set free for me. And I that's, I think, an amazing kind of connection to kind of hear Tracy go through that and what it does. I mean, I still to this day, and people always say, didn't you get burned out from swimming? And I was like, I don't like the chlorine. I don't like the flip turns. I don't like the pool. But I've been lucky enough to find open water. And it really is the release. It's the clarity. And we've gotten to accomplish amazing things through something that is probably a little bit more of a mental clarity and release, and there's a physical aspect to it.
And Tracy, you know, as Brooke so eloquently put it, there are really two sides to your story that people, you know, zero in on. There's the side of you as this incredible athlete and your perseverance and, you know, and your strength, quite frankly. But then there's also the side of it is that you are now a voice for other women who are victims of domestic violence. And what kind of messaging are you trying to get out to those women?
First and foremost, there is life after. You know, there is hope, there is light, and there is healing out there for you. Obviously, you have to find it, and that can be a challenge in itself. But you can't give up on that. There's always a way. There's always an avenue that you can take, or someone out there that loves and cares about you to, you know, move on from your tragedy, no matter what circumstances you find yourself in. It doesn't have to be as extreme as my case. It could be whatever it is. It looks different for everybody, but there is life after.
And I think too, you know, and maybe I'm being partial because I do have 4 daughters, but I do think that sometimes when women find themselves in this situation, it's almost like a slow burn. It happens over time, and it doesn't maybe always start out this way, but there are these signs that, you know what, something is just wrong. And obviously you knew that to be true, or you wouldn't have walked away from that situation and tried to begin a new life. But it's okay to look at your heart and your soul and say, you know what, something's off here.
Yes, absolutely. Recognition of what's going on in the situation is the most fundamental step, because that's when you wake up and you realize this isn't healthy, this isn't working, and this is not good. I need to leave, or something needs to change. And the hardest part of that is the recognition, but taking that first step forward and finding those resources and finding your footing to get back to you again.
So talk to me about Nacha. She's in. I know when she slides in, she's going to say something. Nacha.
Tracy, your story is incredibly inspiring. And I guess I just, talking about those challenges, what would you say was the biggest motivator, or like the biggest thing that lit this fire of, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I am going to recover. I am going to persist and continue on doing bigger and better things?
There's so many things, and I'm so lucky to be able to say that. But number one is I've always had this prayer, so to speak, and this vision for my life of changing the world and finding purpose through pain, regardless of where I found myself in life. And you know, the story starts for me as far as childhood. You know, growing up wasn't great for me, and it just kind of evolved into me ending up with this disability. But like I said, I always had this hope and prayer that I was going to change the world in some way, shape, or form, no matter how that looked or what it took. And I just always wanted this beautiful family and to have peace and happiness and just love and light in my life. And that's what I have now, and it keeps me going every day.
That is so incredibly beautiful. And I do think it's a really powerful message. Earlier, Tracy and Brooke were both on our globally syndicated health and wellness show, and you know, you spoke to that, Brooke, about how Tracy's story is one that resonates with all of us, because you're right, we do hit these very, very dark spaces in our lives. You know, some moments where, like in my life, I'm like, do I really need to be here? But I think at the end of the day, you know, holding on to that hope, faith, whatever it is that drives you in life, that's what propels you forward. And, you know, the people that are watching instead of listening today can't see the great guy in the corner holding this adorable blue, doughy-eyed little 8-month girl. But when you see it all come together, you know, it really does teach you that life is beautiful. You just have to hold tight during the dark times.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Tracy's story, I think, resonates with everyone. But the one thing that I think I've learned and I've appreciated so much of getting to know Tracy is she's never really played the victim role. I've never heard her be that way. She's always got the positive twist on it, and I know it's not always like that. I mean, Tracy and I have shared some conversations, and you know, and I think they always say, as cliche as it sounds, it's okay not to be okay. But it is just a voice that one thing that I admire Tracy about is she's really stepped up, and she's not afraid to step back. She's not afraid to put her family first. But I think not playing the victim role and going forward is the example. And for the avenue with you, Gayle, and Bloom, to be able to share that. And it resonates not only with me being an Olympian too and being the athlete, but this story goes too with what I do with CFY and our young kids today and our youth, because we work with kids in Pinellas County that, you know, don't have the pleasure to always be able to participate in sports because financially those families can't do it, or they have stories that aren't so great, but CFY is able to step in to give them a positive outlet to be on a youth sports team and have mentors and have coaches to, if they're going down a dark path, we can hopefully use athletics to gear that. So it all kind of circles in together.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful. All right. Let's take a moment to ask some viewer questions here. Cindy wrote in and she wants to know, Tracy, how did you stay motivated when facing physical or emotional challenges?
That's a great question, because a lot of times I wasn't. You know, getting out of bed is the hardest thing for me in the morning. You know, I get really down and I get really sad, but at the end of the day, I have the perspective of I've been through something so like life altering that I can't allow that to go to waste, and I can't allow that to just go to the wayside and not be honored or shared and explored and just be an example for people. And being that light and being kind of a beacon of hope for people has always been something that keeps me going. And that's been a main motivator for me. And that's what gets me out of bed every day is my daughter, my fiance, and just the gift that I've been given a second chance to motivate and help other people too.
That's such a beautiful outlook in life. Moving on to Vanessa's question, how do you think motherhood has influenced your journey?
It has changed my perspective on how I navigate the world. I know this might sound really weird, and I'm going to make this as concise as possible, but it made me recognize that although my body doesn't function the way that it should or the way that it used to, I have something more valuable than I've ever had before, and that's my voice. Mm-hmm. Not only for like speaking purposes, but my daughter is always listening. My fiance is always listening. Others are always listening because I've been given this platform to speak, and that's been something that's so put into place for me when I became a mother.
It's beautiful. Brooke, I know, because I've been kind of not eavesdropping on purpose, but listening in on some conversations. I know you want to continue to work with Tracy to get her word out and to push her out on more platforms. I mean, the entire reason that Tracy is with us today on Bloom Health Club and joined us on Bloom is because of you, and we're so appreciative of that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think it's a story that needs to be told on two levels. We said this, but the message that I like to get across is a lot of people don't understand the challenges that athletes have, Paralympic athletes, Olympic athletes have financially to be able to do and achieve and pursue their dreams. And it's hard. And Tracy wants to talk about her attack. I think there's a platform, and she always says, I wish you could come be my manager full time. I go, I don't do that, and I don't have enough experience. I can only give you the best advice that I can and offer things. But it is the message for Tracy and for her story that we want to see her competing in LA 28, and we can't step back and wait for things to happen. We have to push forward to make them happen for her. And that's not just on the coaching side, but that's the financial side too for them.
We're going to wrap up with one last question. Valerie wants to know, Tracy, do you think having a mentor like Brooke makes a difference for athletes, and why?
Oh, absolutely. Brooke, when she slid into my DMs that day, changed my life. Like she's given me this profound sense of like, I need to go and I need to do this harder than I was doing it before. Yes. And she's like, she showed me and is continuing to teach me what it means to be an athlete, what that looks like, what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a competitor, a motivator, and someone that is in this space. And it's something that I never imagined would come from my life, but like, man, it's so fun. And I'm so thankful to have her to do this with me. And I think it's very important for other athletes to have people and role models like her in their life.
Well, Tracy, on a personal note, this will go down as one of the most meaningful interviews I've ever had. So thank you so much for joining us. And Brooke, thank you for making it happen.
Well, thank you for having us in and letting us tell the story.
Yes.
I knew when I reached out to you, you were going to jump all over it. So, and when you said join us in the streaming center, I was like, yes.
We had to keep talking about this. And listen, you can watch our streaming show, Bloom Health Club, on Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, Samsung TV, WFLA.com, and YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Monticciolo Family and Sedation Dentistry for believing in us so we can get these powerful stories out. And I will see you on the next Bloom Health Club.